just to give you a little bit of an overview, what we'll do is go through some of what your aspirations have been in terms of cross-cultural work, look a little bit at your history, some of what is in this wonderful book, and then we'll have chance for Q&A, and then we have a lovely reception, and we invite you to both pick up a book, which we will have on sale, as well as have a chance to have a conversation with KaiYin Lo about her life and her devotion to cross-cultural connections. And when we were talking about tonight's program, this morning, KaiYin said, could we start with the idea of the cross-cultural? Because that has become such an important part of your vision. And I think that's so powerful, especially at this time in the history of the world, because it's a time that's rather fraught, whether it's in Hong Kong, but in many other parts of the world as well. So how we find those ways to make the connections cross-culturally. And I would say to be able to imagine this artistically, so that we're really sharing what is the beauty of the world. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about your vision.
Thank you so much. Thank you, first of all, braving this sudden and extreme cold to come in with me and hear us tonight. Well, New York is always a special place because for me, it's here that I really grew up or grew larger and found my vocation and found my niche. And so it's wonderful to be here and launching my book and also talking about me. So I was a typical Hong Kong girl, and I was educated in the UK, like so many of us aspiring to education. I read history. Why, I don't know, because history these days will prepare you for a lot of jobs. In my days, it did not. But I'm so pleased that I studied history. That gave me a grasp and a vision of the world.
And you started with Western history, didn't you?
I did because our tutor at school was a medievalist. When I went to Cambridge, the Regis professor was the leading medievalist in England. So I knew all about monasteries, medieval encounter. And when I went down to London, I opened up. It was Renaissance history, which was an open vista of development, of a lot of changes in society. Above all, that opened up the monolithic world of Catholicism into a multi-plural world of competition, of many other development. I didn't know a thing much about Chinese history until I went back to Hong Kong, and when I rediscovered my world through antiques. This was a time when the antiques, Deng Xiaoping, the strong man of China, opened up China in 1979. And, cross-cultural endeavors in kind and in thought was possible. And I didn't know much about my own history. So I went to Cass Street, acquired these still affordable things. And then I soon decided, I said, why don't I wear them? Instead of having them boxed up in little cubicles, like in the old literati way, and then share them with people of like knowledge, I wanted to flaunt them and see that they could be part of life. And so I've been doing that ever since.
So can we back up for a second? I want to go back to the Renaissance, because I think you're a Renaissance woman.
Well, thank
and
you.
I would like you to give us some thoughts about if you think that idea of a Renaissance informed your deciding to kind of mix and think about history and these objects in a new way.
Yes, it was a controlled world of Catholicism. I was brought up all my life in convent schools, nothing wrong with that. But it did not open up questioning new thoughts. The Renaissance brought up a new idea, approach, a new, above all, I think it was competition. Competition opened up many possibilities and opened up new vistas, inventions. And so that was what I thought, well, I explore my own life. In 1960s, there was a big reversal in my family, not unlike what's happening to Hong Kong now, except at that time, it was political. The Red Guards, we were fearing Red Guards would come to Hong Kong.
So shall we look at your big house?
Yes, we had to sell the house because the stock market plunged 70%.
So this is the house that you grew up in, is that correct?
This was the house I grew up in that my grandfather built in 1932. No, built in 1914. We all lived together for 3 generations of the family. And so this had to go eventually by 1970,
so let's
I
see
think.
A little bit.
Yes.
This is the
front
entrance?
entrance of the house. Kennedy Road was called the second level road. It's as high as Chinese were allowed to build houses and live. They said dogs and Chinamen could only advance to this level. After that, only foreigners could live higher. Anyway, this was the front gate, and then there should be another view of the entrance. Yes, that's after the main entrance. You could see we had a lot of rooms, but it was quite a big family, all living together.
How many people? Do you remember?
Well, there were 4 in our family, and there were 8 in the number 1 son's family, and then there were something like 25 servants and sundries, etc., etc. So anyway, the house was sold in 1972 because we had to raise the money.
So, but you still had that house when you went to the UK to study,
Yes,
is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe we can explore a little bit about
the UK
that
education,
moment.
and that was when my father took me there. Yes, I went to a convent school in Sussex, Millfield, Sussex. I was always educated by nuns. So anyway, now this was much later. When I joined London University, I worked in this room. The British Museum's reading room is still there, except all the books have gone to the British Library.
Aha.
Yes. And that was a shot of Cambridge, King's College, not my college, Girton, which was built in 1890s, I think.
So this was the time that you were studying Renaissance, medieval and Renaissance history?
Yes, yes, yes.
And then you went back to Hong Kong, is that right?
I went back to Hong Kong. Yes, that's right. Trying to make a living.
Right.
Well, I found myself at the Mandarin Hotel, employed by the Mandarin Hotel, Hong Kong's first, after the Peninsula Hotel, it was Hong Kong's first international hotel built in Central District of Hong Kong. Harold Lee was the chairman, an urbane, Oxford-educated, wonderful man. And I met James A. Lennon, who at different times was the president of Time Inc., then he became the chairman, and that's when I met him, and he said, "Young woman, do you want a job in New York?" I said, "Yeah." So he gave me a job, not significant. I didn't know what I was doing. I was roaming the floors, working at cable TV and Time and Fortune, doing odd jobs.
So give us a picture. You're a young woman from Hong Kong and you've just arrived in New York. What was it like?
It was scary because it didn't pay very well. By the time after tax, I was not used to such high tax, even though in my scale of pay, the tax was the lowest. I think I reaped something like $500 per month. But I was very lucky. A girlfriend, vacated her flat as 470 Park Avenue to move in with her boyfriend. So she said, "Would you like to occupy my flat?" So this strategic location was the change in my life. Corner of 57th Street, every day I looked at the shops, I looked at Tiffany, Juan Rotella, all the way down Fifth Avenue, trying to get inspired, trying to I had all these antique jewelry, which was not that suitable for the taste of the population.
So you were already collecting, is that right?
I was already collecting. I had a handful of these things.
Yes. And what captured your imagination that you started that collecting?
Well, I went to all these stores the whole time, and Bonwitella, you know, jewelry at that time was diamonds, pearls, expensive, gold, precious jewelry, and there were fakes, plastics, and glass, nothing in between. So I thought there must be something real, which is less costly, affordable, and that would go with clothes. And at that time, it was the beginning of the end of the ivory industry, which took about 40 years to go down the drain. And these ivory workers were skilled workmen. This is a great tradition from the Ming Dynasty, China. That would be about 13th, 14th century down, you know, for the skillful carvers to use the ivory tusk. And so these, I could convince these artisans to carve in another medium, which was semi-precious stones. Semi-precious stones began to drift in from Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, and I think Pakistan, and lapis lazuli was still expensive from Afghanistan, and from South America, from Brazil. And so I asked these carvers to attempt carving semi-precious stones.
So you arrive in New York and you're already starting to make jewelry, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I already had in my pocket a range of this jewelry. So every day as I was walking up and down Fifth Avenue on my way to work, I looked at, got inspired what American taste was.
Yeah, yeah.
So I sort of went home because I had a visa that necessitated an exit every 6 months. So when I went home, I worked with these carvers.
So did you feel that when you came to New York, you already had the idea that you wanted to make a jewelry line? And
Not really. I was trying to make a new living. You know, and artistically, I was, you know, so inclined. So anyway, I had 2 ranges of jewelry, this range, which one day I walked into Cartier, queued up, and I am forever thankful to this country. Where in the world could you queue up in a first-class store and show them your wares and be examined? And then the first time they said, very interesting, go home and improve. And the second time, they accepted me. And Cartier, let me add, at that time, was still belonged to a branch. You know, since its foundation, I think in 1832, and then it was united by one family, and then the London branch split it up, and then the New York branch. But the next year, it was bought by an outside firm called Silver Match, and they united all the branches, and from then on, they would only produce things from their own atelier, their own kind of bank of design. So I was the last one. So it was just one season.
But that was the opening, because then you were at Bergdorf.
No, that was another range, because this was one-off.
Yeah.
And this sort of thing is a bit exoteric. And I saw how busy the women were, and all wearing fake jewelry or a strand of pearls. So I thought, wow, surely there must be some colorful range. So I went home and worked on the color stones and make them bigger, because in Asia, people like smaller things. I had to adapt to the taste here. And so anyway, I had my satchel walking up and down Fifth Avenue, tried the stores, and finally Bloomingdale bought it. So that was the beginning.
So was it Bloomingdale, New York, and did it then go elsewhere?
Well, that was the store because, you know, at Time Inc., they sent, I was a bag carrier to the bag carrier's assistant on a big trip to Iran. And I met the head of Federated Department Stores that controlled Bloomingdale I Magnum. So I asked Jim Lennon to introduce me to the chairman of Federated, and he said he arranged it. And one day I got a phone call from a woman called Rose Wells. He said, the only appointment I can see you is at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I said, so I went to see her, And then she looked, I'm sorry, I have to go into this because this is the ritual of selling things into the stores in this country, I suppose in other countries too. So 7 a.m. I went to her office and saw her because the chairman asked her to see me. So she said, very interesting, and I'll send you to the right people. So I said, you mean you don't buy? He said, no, I don't buy, I look. So anyway, after that, finally, I found the buyer of Bloomingdale's. He was on a buying trip in Hong Kong. So I saw him in Hong Kong.
Oh, really?
Yes. So my first collection was at Bloomingdale's. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's an amazing story.
So that was encouraging.
So was that collection then the semi-precious?
Oh, it's all semi-precious. Yeah. And from then on, I plowed that way.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what worked the best in the United States.
Yes.
You felt.
Semi-precious. And I must add, kind of it's long-winded. And when I got into Neiman Marcus, my goodness, I thought, wow, I've reached the top. I went to Dallas, their headquarters, and not one piece on show. So I said, what's happened? He said, we have no department to house it. Jewelry is real, is fake, nothing in between. So I convinced them to start a department 9 months later, the semi-precious department. And so it followed with Saks, with Harrods in London. So it was really a trial.
That's great. So that at that point, it started to not only be in the United States, but in other markets as well.
Yes, I never made it so much in France because the French is, it's not so easy to convince them. I was at Galerie Lafayette too, yes.
I wondered if we could come back to a little bit of your some of the iconic symbols that have been so important in your work. And I'm thinking right now about knots.
Yes.
That whole symbol of eternity, of destiny. Could you talk a little bit about that? And I know that you found similar designs in other cultures as well as in China.
That's right. I came across a knot as a symbol, the knot without beginning, without end. We show one later on.
Well, there's one, right?
Not really.
No, not really.
That's my invention. No, there is one. The eternity knot, one of the 8 Buddhist emblems.
Okay.
And so it was a Buddhist emblem. I think it went into China via Tibet in the 1st century AD. It's still used in mainland China by many firms because it's such an agreeable. We'll try and find. Yes, I'm wearing one. No beginning to no end, and it kind of it can be transported to many countries, east and west. So I was looking for symbols and designs that kind of not Oriental, and yet be understood to be by the West. And so the Silk Road was a big conduit for 3,000 years plus between China and via Central Asia and to the West. And silk was the fabled product of China. And it traveled, it really took over 15 to 18 months to make a trip from Chang'an, capital of China, across the desert, Central Asia, Fergana, all the way to the Mediterranean. And it lasted for many centuries. At the height of it, of course, was between the 15th to the 17th century. And Venice was the capital, was basic. But to go back, the Roman Empire was besotted with silk, so were the European countries. It was the great luxury commodity. In the 4th century AD, the Emperor Tiberius, reign, silk was more than the price of gold.
So silk was more valuable than gold at that time.
That's right.
And yet silk is more ephemeral in a certain way than gold.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this fabled product, and different centers, I'll show, I think, later on, Palmyra in Iraq, a great center of silk, and Venice was the destination. And then I will show later on the signs that went with the Silk Road trade from China, long way across the desert into the Mediterranean.
So we'll come back to the Silk Road.
Yes, because that's why I am a cross-cultural historian.
Yeah.
This is why it's understanding of this traffic between east to west and west to east again. And also, the Silk Road is not only land, but by sea. When ceramics became the rage, it's too heavy. It went by sea, started from the 7th century. The height of it was
That's
about
right.
the 14th, 15th century. Mm-hmm.
In fact, many of them came from the Middle East, from China to the Middle East and back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, and you find different interpretations in Italy and also in Portugal and etc. So when you talk about the silk trade, the porcelain trade, it was just the primary product. They also had all sorts of things, vegetables, spices, and slaves. Yes.
Yes, it's not all a happy history, is it?
No, it's not about heavy history.
Yeah.
But anyway, now we go back to...
But I wanted to go back to this because this was a really important moment.
In my life, yes.
And an acknowledgement that that work was being seen and understood as having a significance.
Yes, after about 5 years being in the shops, and I was taken seriously. Susie Menkes was the premier fashion critic in the world, and then she wrote about me, in this, I established a new category of jewelry, and she ended up, if she succeeds, then she's a pioneer, if she succeeds.
And you proved her right.
Well, anyway, I don't know what success is, but
yeah.
I worked
But I
very
mean,
hard.
it was a new vision, for sure.
Yes,
I think
it was. And also, later on, the Financial Times gave me a wonderful quote to describe my by making antiques wearable. But there's David Pillings, the chief Far East correspondent, said, she makes history wearable.
That's a great quote. She makes history wearable.
Yes, I never forget that.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I love that because it's both literal and metaphorical.
Yes.
It has the sweep
It means,
of that.
being historian,
Yes.
it meant so much to me.
Yeah.
That meant, in history in those days, you're almost unemployable except teaching. So I made history.
And you made history by not teaching.
That's right.
Or not being a teacher.
Not being a teacher. Well,
But of course, you are a teacher.
Now
Yes.
I'm finally a teacher again.
So asymmetry.
Well,
How did you come up with that?
it was a
Everyone should check out these shoes.
Well, anyway, it was a shortcut because traveling with luggage, I had to eliminate my own luggage. So carrying 3 shoes and have 2 combinations, you eliminate 1 shoe. So same thing with this is by Nuno, famous #1 national treasure fabric designer in Japan. And I could buy remnant materials. This one is a whole thing. Usually I have different colors in different sleeves. It's okay. So, if you think you don't need to match, that's fine. So, I developed that because it's not an escape from, but it really is from old Chinese philosophy, Laozi, balance is not matching. You just have to, you just maintain that balance, that's all.
Is not matching.
That's right.
I just think there's something so deeply evocative in that.
Yes.
That
yes.
statement.
Left and
because
right.
you really have to think about it.
Yes, you don't need to be aligned. You can align this way. So,
Right. In fact, you've said harmony is asymmetry.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. So anyway, these are some of my designs, 2 ranges. One is making antiques or making history wearable, and the other one is, you could say I was a pioneer of semi-precious stones. The majority of which came from South America first, and then Southeast Asia as well. And because I looked around in life in New York primarily, so busy, and yet you don't want to be responsible wearing precious jewelry. And I mean, it's too cumbersome to go to your bank vault and get things every time. It's not the same as we in Asia. And, you know, every time you go for a dinner, you know, you have to look kind of adorned with jewelry or jade pieces. But here it's a different kind of life. So therefore, I did not want people to wear fake stuff all the time, plastic or glass. So semi-precious stones, it's colorful, it's real, and it's less expensive.
And did you have to think about the market? I mean, you know, if you're in the fashion industry, you know that there are colors that come and go.
All the time.
And did you have to align yourself with what would work for a given
very
season?
Good question. A very good question. Because semi-precious stones, it's natural. It's not dyed. They only come in certain colors. So I have to know what the fashion trend would be, because the department stores would feature spring colors. If it is orange, I can't do orange. Orange will be coral, too expensive. So I have to contrast. And blue is okay, I can take up blue stones. So autumn is the easiest because there are a number of brown stones. So it's always a challenge, but I have to know the colors when the fabrics are being decided. So it's long stretch ahead. So anyway, there are only certain stones. I'm always trying to discover new stones, new colors.
And have you found, were most of these stones in Hong Kong?
No,
how did you discover
all over
them?
the world. I mean, a lot come from South America, and that's antique. You know, all over recently I discovered a blue stone, because lapis lazuli, it's too expensive. I discovered called diorite or something like that, and it's, you know, I'm always seeking new stones.
Yeah.
So not easy.
Well, there are new stones and there are new shapes. And
The shapes
I'm really
I can condition.
fascinated and love the story about this shape here.
I'm not wearing any P. Yes, a P is a round shape, because it meant cosmos, the heavens in China. And so this one was 3 pieces. You know, this is a small size, it's 1 circle. The 3 pieces, you know, because of the size of the material, they would have, I could only find 2. So I thought, why not arrange it like that, you know, and it looks fine. So you have to be out of convention, have some daring. And, you know, the orthodox people would say, hey, first thing is, you know, you lack 1 piece. So I said, that's all right.
Well, to me, it looks like the Silk Road.
That's
you
right,
know,
you know, in opposite direction.
You've taken that circle and you've made it have another.
No, I just only discovered
meaning.
2 pieces from that circle. That's right. And good thing I found the ring at the end, you know, in similar colors. And they're all natural.
But this is an image that I think you have repeated a number of times in your designs.
Yes. Well, anyway, at first people, well, these are old and new. The bottom part, I mean, this is Han Dynasty. That would make it about over 2,000 years old.
Yeah,
I use
wow.
a lot of old things because the old shapes are very strong and very simple. But very often I don't want to part with them. That's the problem.
That is a beautiful piece.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about where the different parts of the
Well, I use a lot of amber. Amber, you know, these days is in rare supply, but old amber is old amber. These are old amber, and then the gold pieces, not the silver gilt pieces, date from I think that the Liao Dynasty. That would make it about the 13th century. And so this pendant is Han Dynasty, is ceramics.
This one. And
Yes.
this is actually, did you say Han?
2,000 years old.
Wow.
2,000 years old, yes. You know, and so I go around, you know, having people look at them. And usually people will just collect the piece and put it in a box. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so we go on with the next one. And
Yeah, first though, I want to hear about this one.
that's ivory. We cannot realize that.
I see.
I now use bone.
Yeah.
And bone is brittle.
Yeah.
And bone that cannot hold this shape, which is a great shame that limits a lot of my designs, you know, because ivory finally taboo. Now this is what this country knows of my design, semi-precious stones. So they're all real, not that expensive. This is dark crystal mixed with Baroque pearls. The Baroque pearls I used to buy from Japan, and the cost of pearl growth, pearl farming's gone up so much, and so the Japanese trained the Chinese to set up farms south of Shanghai, north of Hangzhou. And so these, in fact, I don't think I'm mistaken in thinking that even Tiffany uses 80% of the pearls from China. China dominates the pearl market now. Yes, Japan prices is out of the market. And so this is very typical of what people think of KaiYin Lo semi-precious stone. And the earrings, you know, you don't need to be asymmetrical like me, but I do the same pair in the same color, but I show different colors.
So I have a question. Would this be something you would have sold in New York?
Yes.
Or, yes, not in China? Or was there a difference in the...
The Chinese market never took to this until 3 years ago. They wanted real things. They wanted pearls and diamonds from Cartier, from Tiffany. But now they're much more relaxed, and they
more interesting.
That's right. They accept this range. Now this is the knot, which is my variation from the Silk Road knot. We don't have a. Do I have? No. Anyway, you can see the knot, and this knot traveled across from wherever, I think from somewhere, starting from China perhaps, all the way. It got modified as it passed through Central Asia, and when it arrived at the Mediterranean, in Greece, it became the Grecian sailor's knot, became simplified.
Oh, I see. That's interesting.
You know,
so it started in China and then went to Greece.
Yes. You know, it's well, anyway, the amber is another story. I mean, China, Japan, and Korea love amber, and but amber has been priced out of the market, partly because the Chinese now can afford it. And I must cite the tale. I was invited to Poland to give a lecture. So I rushed to Gdansk. No amber in sight. In fact, Russia has the monopoly of it and selling all to China now. So if you want amber of this sort, you go to China to buy it. So anyway, that's
a part of the trade war we don't talk about very much.
Well, you know, I mean, Gdansk is very near the end of the Baltic Sea. Kaliningrad is a military a stronghold, and that's where they collect it, and it goes to China. So anyways, now these are the knots on the Silk Road. This is the necklace, I call the Silk Road necklace, that I'm wearing. And the bottom one, this one, the knot without beginning and without end, which is one of the 8 Buddhist emblems. And the top knot is what I showed. I saw it in some garment hooks of the Han Dynasty, which would be 2 centuries BC. You know, as I said, it just traveled, and in Greece, it became simplified as a sailor's knot. And the bottom one, I thought I invented. Then when I went to Syria, I saw it in the museum, 5th century AD in ceramic tiles. So anyway, the knots kind of got intermixed, interviews, interpreted throughout from the east to the west and all the way to Ireland.
And what was in Ireland?
You find many knots in Ireland.
Ah.
Yes, absolutely. In the prayer books, in the Psalms, except they get very complicated. I haven't looked into that. I must sometime. But it's too complicated to be featured.
That's
so
interesting.
Anyway, so some more. I mean, as I said, these butterfly pearls, I love, and they were reared first in Lake Biwa, and now all reared in China.
Huh.
Yes.
Where in China?
Near Hangzhou.
Near Hangzhou.
Yes, they have big pearl farms that produces most of the world's supply of pearls.
I mean, they're so dramatic.
You know,
Really?
I quote Karen McCartney, curatorial director of the Cooper Hewitt, and she said, you know, she has this necklace. She said, I wear this necklace more often and get more compliments than any other piece of my jewelry. So I'm very pleased. It costs a fraction of the price of pearls than in Japan. Mm-hmm. And this was the pin that Yu Sai-Khan wore. So this is another version of the pearl. So this is my more expensive precious range. My jewelry is never that expensive because that's the whole idea.
I should mention that we do have, we're very happy to have a short-term sale of KaiYin's beautiful new designs in the store.
For the last 20 years in the store.
And so she will be here, it's tonight and tomorrow.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Until tomorrow.
Yeah.
So anyway, so next one. Making a name in Japan, that's vanity. Because I thought I was in all the top stores here, and 1980s Japan was at the height of its commercial power. So I thought, well, why not go into the Japanese market? Then I found out, no, the Japanese don't think much of the Chinese as a brand name. So in fact, I couldn't even get rental in Akasaka, Roppongi, and finally I was very lucky to have the patronage of Hana Mori. She was the leading couturier of the 1980s. She made clothes for the emperor, the entire imperial family, everybody. She also established the Hana Mori Couture House on Avenue Montaigne in Paris. So she had an international vision.
How did you meet her?
I don't know how I met her. Yes, I hate to throw names through Mr. Tange. Tange's son was my friend. So anyway, so Hana Mori helped me. She gave me space in her building in Omotesando. Even the Hong Kong government tried very hard to get me premise in the right places. No.
But things did change.
Things did change. Well, anyway, that's later. Things did change, and I got clever. The North American president of Mitsukoshi introduced me, KaiYin Lo-san from Bergdorf Goodman. That's how I cracked the Japanese market. So great. From then on afterwards, I was in Mitsukoshi. I mean, the whole rigmarole of Japanese retailing and merchandising is convoluted.
So it was a different psychology than what you found in New York.
Completely.
Yeah.
Chinese not good enough, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Bergdorf was.
Even later on, just about make it because she was at Bergdorf only. Chinese, no. French, number 1. Italy, number 2. America, 3rd. The rest.
Has it changed?
Yes, it has changed. It has changed. That was 1990.
Yeah. How would you say it's changed? How does it feel now?
I'm not that familiar. You know, the stores are not sacrosanct anymore. They all want business, so they want to welcome as many shoppers. And Tokyo is a metropolis. You just have to do that, you know. But the Japanese way of shopping is sacrosanct. It's a ceremony. And unlike the people wanting to buy things, they think very hard and they want the things to last and to keep for a long time. It's a culture in Japan. So anyway, finally I made the top shop in Waco. Getting into Waco is like getting into Valhalla. So they gave me a retrospective, and this is Mrs. Hattori. The family owned Seiko Watch and owned this department store. And so that was a defining moment to have this retrospective.
You passed over that hurdle.
That's right, yes, yes.
That's great.
So anyway.
So let's jump over to furniture.
Yes.
And your love of furniture.
Thank you, thank you. This is a side interest. Now, to learn about Chinese way of living, which I wanted to, after my first trip to China, to see how the old house was organized and how the arrangement of furniture was very, very much part of the design of the house, i.e. of ranking in the house. It's absolutely all ordained. So I decided to look into furniture. And so I also met the man who opened up the knowledge of furniture, Professor Wang Xixiang, in the 1980s. In my first book, he wrote this beautiful calligraphic preface for me.
Is this the book?
This is the book, yes. This is the book, this self-advertisement is very well known in China because of him and because, well, I suppose because of him and because of the first book that defined what furniture meant in the Chinese house. It's de rigueur, the arrangement, because there's a hierarchy of the Chinese house. The Chinese house did not change either. It's one of the reasons, as people say, that's why they needed a revolution to do away with all that. So anyway, this was what he wrote. And I like to say, he said, furniture are portable vehicles in the house. They have their own station, but they are removable. And then he said, KaiYin Lo is really not interested in collecting furniture. She's interested in knowing why furniture is placed in a certain position, which means that's the organization of the household and the house, and in extended fashion, the organization of the community. It's because everything is ordained. It's one of the reasons why China had a revolution. I mean, you simply could not challenge so many hundreds of years of development like that.
Do you think that when you think about your family home, that very large home that had so many people that had to be allocated space according to a hierarchy, is there a relationship to some of the philosophy around what you're talking about?
The inside arrangement in the occupation, yes, but already it was a kind of a foreign style interpreted house. Traditional Chinese house was not organized like that, no. But on the other hand, this side of the family occupied that is according to the seniority.
Yeah, you said that's a strict idea of
hierarchy.
Of
hierarchy, yes. This is the book which has established my credibility in China. So that she is a historian not only of the flippant West, she understood the essence of Chinese household and organization and living pattern, which never changed. That's one of the reasons needed a revolution, maybe. I don't know.
So I'm just going to go back again, though, thinking about this idea that you studied the Renaissance, and then you started thinking about Chinese history and where new ideas came from. And seeing that with that cross-cultural interest that became so important to you, how that developed.
The cross-cultural interest, it is important. That's why, as I said, when Central St. Martin, possibly the world's leading design school, but they couldn't honor me for design, but they could honor me for the thought behind the development of design. made me a professor, their first professor of cross-culture, it really, really meant a great deal to me because China influenced the West for so long. And now when it's opened up, when the questioning all started and the new ideas went in, now this is an instance of when the new ideas went in. 1892, the East Asiatic Company started in Denmark, started trading with the West, with the East, sorry. And Hans Wagner, possibly the best known European postmodern designer, and he saw a chair, the China chair, you know, which is with the round back, which quite unlike what the West had. And he saw that, and he finally secured one, and he sat in it. He said, very uncomfortable. It's true, because you don't need comfort. You need to sit here to look your part. You know, it's so anyway, and he interpreted it, and he made his China chair much smaller and comfortable. So wood is another thing that is so important in Chinese furniture preference. The ranking of furniture is determined on what wood it is made of, and Jitan and Huanghua and then Nanwu, etc., etc. And so when Alvar Aalto did the bent wood arms of the curly birch, which is indigenous to his country, it's really, for me, is a great, development. And the Chinese acknowledged that too, but then they said it's a lowly wood. The Chinese really cared about the good wood.
And what are the good woods?
The good wood is number one is Huanghua. It used to be Jitan because the imperial furniture were made of Jitan. But Jitan still can be grown, but Huanghua has become extinct. Therefore, very desirable. It fetches very, very high prices, you know. And the good furniture were all mostly made in these two kinds of wood, and there's the third kind with Nanwu, but down the grade. So anyway, this is more about my collecting, because as a European historian, I didn't quite understand Chinese culture, and the height for us of Chinese civilization occurred in the Song Dynasty, and which is from the 960 to 1205, 08. So anyway, the ceramics from this era,
relatively short dynasty, actually.
Well, it's northern and southern Song. It's the most literary and the most civilized of Chinese dynasty, except they didn't want to fight, so they were not good warriors. And they moved their capital from Kaifeng to Hangzhou, and it's a great dynasty of scholarship, of intellectual development, and as reflected in the ceramics of that era.
And what kind of clay were they using?
What kind
was this porcelain?
It was proto-porcelain, not porcelain yet. Porcelain was did not come into being till the next dynasty, when they discovered a magic ingredient which transformed them to porcelain called kaolin. And they had it in Turkey as well. And so this was proto-porcelain. And the shapes were Central Asian, a lot of them, because there was a lot of interchange, as we said, between. So this was exhibited at Denver Art Museum.
And these are all pieces that you've collected over the years.
Yes. So it's much more affordable than the Ming Dynasty. I couldn't afford the next dynasty stuff. So I also interpreted this. So these are all newly made out of Jingdezhan. You know, it cost many trips, and so. So
these are all your designs.
Yes, these are all my designs. Yes.
Inspired, but newly imagined. Inspired,
yes, that's right. I was commissioned when a new hotel in Hong Kong was established. I designed a collection of ceramics for them. Oh, let me talk about Wu Guanzhong.
Yes, and then I want to make sure we leave some time for
Yes,
audience
questions. That's
questions.
right. It's like one of the highlights of my life. As somebody who's interested in furniture, in ceramics, these are not the high arts of China. Painting is the high art of China, and I didn't have the education to appreciate and understand paintings. So, but until I met Wu Guanzhong, and his paintings really moved me. And he was really one of the first of the modernists. And the first sentence he spoke to me when I saw him in Tokyo in an exhibition, he said, "Miss Lo, I know you travel a lot. Please fix me an exhibition in Paris." He was educated in Paris. Yes.
His work is so amazing.
That's what changed his life.
Energy.
That's what has changed his life. He was not orthodox, you see. He dared to be different.
Yes.
You see. So I went to 25 museums and finally fixed him an exhibition at the British Museum. That was an epoch-making exhibition because British Museum never had a one-man exhibition for any artist of any nationality, of any age. No, they did had one of Rembrandt's drawings, so, but he's dead. So anyway,
that's
no living artist.
Follow Rembrandt.
Yes, same place, same place. He was very lucky because there was a cancellation in the Asahi Shimbun Gallery. So instead of waiting the normal 5 years, we did our exhibition in less than 3 years.
That's amazing.
It was,
I know how hard that can be.
Yes, it really was. It established modern Chinese paintings in the West. It endorsed it. Then I later helped Xu Bing, a contemporary artist, to mount a giant installation at the British Museum. And this is the famous Thomas Heatherwick. I don't know if he means anything to you. He probably is the world's best known designer now. He designed the cauldron next to the shed.
Right.
Yes, that's right. And he's doing the Google's new headquarters, Singapore, national airports, you name it, everything. And he was so famous, and then he was less famous, and he came along. So this is a historic picture.
It's a wonderful photo.
Yes.
It really catches the spirit of the moment.
That's right. And well, anyway, I'm very pleased that I appreciate these people's talent, and I could, convince institutions to endorse them.
Yes, and we have worked with both of them.
Yes.
So I'm very happy.
Xu Bing is very well known in this country. Yes. And I think Heatherwick is very well known everywhere now.
Guangzhong as well.
Yes. So anyway, this is an addendum. Teacher is Lin Fengmian, the head of the Zhejiang Academy, and that educated both Jia Wuji, probably the world's best known Chinese artist. His paintings fetches the highest price, if that is some kind of benchmark. And teacher came to dinner, hosted by Laura Cha, and so this is really a historic photograph. Well, anyway,
so I'm going to ask you one last question before I open it up to all of you, which is, where do you see design going? I mean, particularly thinking about the kind of cross-cultural work and the idea of the Silk Road, and of course, today, thinking about Belt and Road. So the idea that inspiration comes from many different cultures. Where do you see us going in terms of design and arts in the future?
Well, it's designed and designed is can be operated through many devices now. Yeah. Then if you think of furniture, the most desired furniture a designer is that Dutchman. It escapes me. He had a big retrospective at the Cooper Hewitt is completely done by the computer.
Right.
Realized by the computer. And so you have a different dimension of realizing things and of designing, in fact. And so, I mean, I am old-fashioned. I still design, you know, with my own brain, with my own, you know, I don't use any mechanics. So anyway, as I said, I feel that design and culture and there are the values which are, you know, deep down and then reinterpreted because it cannot be invented. The fountainhead is there, it's for you to engage and realize it in different ways. And I'm old-fashioned historian. I draw a lot of my inspiration from history, and I suppose for a lot of realizers, it's the same thing, you know. And so I like to read you a line about, as I said, I'm old-fashioned, and it comes from the history department of Cambridge University. It says, history enriches minds and educates hearts. A lifetime of curiosity, which is a pleasure. Critical thinking and intellectual pleasure. So it's very satisfying.
And I still love this idea that if history is wearable, it reminds us that history is still relevant.
Indeed, it is relevant. Indeed, it is really, it provides you as a guideline, as a reference. You can't start from like nowhere. Mm-hmm.
So let me open it up. Are there any questions?
Yes.
From any of you? Either about where the work has come from, but also about the future.
Yes. No? Thank you.
We have one.
Hmm?
Yes.
Yes.
There was a photograph of a stately mansion on Kennedy Road earlier on.
Sorry.
There's the photograph of your house.
Yes.
On Kennedy Road.
Yes.
It was rumoured during the period I lived in Hong Kong.
It was.
Those stately mansions along Kennedy Road were all connected by underground tunnels, which enabled you to survive the Japanese occupation. Is that correct?
Well, there were no tunnels underneath our house. I know that, you know, the grandest houses belonged to the Lee family. He had 4 wives, and 4 wives, each wife had a huge mansion. They had 4 mansions. But the Japanese troops, you know, I was too young, I wouldn't know. I hear from my parents, the Japanese troops occupied 2 of those buildings, so they moved. The part of the Lee family moved to live with us. So I don't think there were any kind of different structure. Otherwise, they would have gone through the tunnel to come to our house, but they walked through the road to come to our house. I don't think there were tunnels. Well, not that I know of anyway. I spent my childhood in that house.
No, I thought you might have grown up there.
Well, I
She
don't
grew
know.
up in that house, but her house didn't have tunnels.
We did not have tunnels. You know, I don't know if there were a number of old houses. That's as far as Chinese were allowed to build. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So if we don't have further questions, one more, yes.
Hi. Overcome that challenge.
Overcome the challenge of being Chinese and being outside of your home country and being here in New York. What was the challenge?
Well, when I went to school, in a convent school, I was the only Chinese and the first Chinese. I left a very bad impression because I had so much work to catch up, so I never mixed, never mingled, antisocial, and saying that Chinese was susceptible to weather, to all sorts of change conditions, because I had to work the whole time. So my sister later on went to that school. She became school prefect, and I told her all my sins. But anyway, so the Chinese usually supposed to be not mingling that well, not socializing, yes. But I'm not up to date, but the students who came to school here everywhere is very much part of the community, part of the culture. And I can't say about people from mainland China. I suppose they all integrated and mingle as well. If you don't mingle, so you can't be that happy.
But I would push you on this, because it was one thing when you were in school and studying all the time and not mingling. But you came to New York, and you took New York by
because I was much more relaxed, because I had things to catch up in school. I wanted to get out of the school as soon as possible. To pass examinations.
I mean, you were sort of fearless.
Yeah,
in taking your work and just meeting all these people and really understanding this kind of magic box of New York City, and just saying, okay, I can do something that you don't have.
Well, I had $400 in my pocket, so I had to think constructively how to get on in New York. So I was walking up and down Fifth Avenue thinking, what could I do? So finally, I hit something.
You hit something, and you hit it in a great and wonderful way. Please join me in giving a big thank you to KaiYin Lo.
Thank you.
We have her book for sale outside,
you.
And she has agreed to sign, and you have a chance to see the jewelry. And also we have a lovely reception that's about to start, and an opportunity to meet and talk further.
Thank you.
So thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you very much for braving the cold. It is cold today, huh?